All right, this is We the People News one more time. Okay, not an attorney, not giving legal advice, educational purposes only. Right? Never look straight forward, always look around you, be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Right? Use your Second Amendment, arm yourself with knowledge. That way you can use the other one. Alright, so apparently the blurry thing during my first video was my internet or my TV. Not getting good contact or whatever, because these last couple of videos cleared up. So, this time it wasn't YouTube. Alright, let's proceed forward on here and get some education.
Wait a minute. You guys see this one right here? Secretary of State? Why do we need a Secretary of State?
Because they keep track of all of the enacted laws.
There you go. Go back and read the authority of law under the enactment clause, and you'll see that when a bill is passed, it's not a law until the governor signs it. The governor signs it. It's still not a law until it receives the official state seal by the Secretary of the State of that state.
Right.
Who is also an elected official. It's a separate office from this office, from the governor's office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. What am I seeing here? Section 1. The elected constitutional officers of the department.
Let's stop right there for a second, right? So, if the Secretary of State is not doing these things, then laws truly have not been passed, and it has to have a state seal, and the Secretary of State should know that he has to do these things when, for Texas, every 2 years, state passes new laws. So every 2 years, my Secretary of State should know that there's new laws coming in, and he has to stamp it and send it through to make sure it's not law. It's just not governor. I did not know that, by the way. So I'm educated on this too as well.
The executive department shall consist of governor, lieutenant governor, state auditor, state treasurer, and attorney general. Well, what's the problem with this between these two, other than they're different?
My gosh.
What's the problem, Erica? What's the problem of removing the Secretary of State office completely and adding that into the lieutenant governor?
Because he's supposed to be the gatekeeper, the one that stands in this place for the people to show what actual enacted laws are.
Okay. Not only that, the Secretary of State under the original Constitution has the jurisdiction and authority, let me see if it shows here, to manage our state's elections. Right?
Yeah.
What are we seeing right now in this?
So he has subject matter jurisdiction.
They're following statutes that aren't in alignment with the constitutions.
Mm-hmm. Let me scroll down here. Congressional apportionment. I don't care about that. Senatorial districts, education. I want to find the one that talks about elections. I know it's here somewhere. Public debt, militia, labor. I thought it was. Maybe I just went to the... No, it's okay. We'll get to this part. Essentially, what they have done is you want to talk about a massive conflict of interest. Our state right now, all of our elections in this state are managed by the lieutenant governor's office. The lieutenant governor is not separately elected. I'll say that again. In the state of Utah, the lieutenant governor is not a separately elected office. They are a running mate with the governor. So let me ask you, Erica, if the governor, who's currently sitting in office now, loses at caucus, doesn't get enough names, doesn't get enough support to get onto the general ballot, and he decides he wants to circumnavigate the lawful system that's been put in place to maintain his quote-unquote power.
Oh, what a hypothetical situation, James.
Isn't that weird? Such a hypothetical situation.
Weird.
Wouldn't he or they propose legislation to give someone an alternative means to get on the ballot, even though it's wholly unconstitutional with the state's constitution? And then wouldn't there be a massive conflict of interest in that it's being run by his lieutenant governor's office, who's also 100% vested in the outcome of said election? Does that make sense to anyone?
No.
This is exactly what happened in the state of Indiana when I filed my criminal complaints.
Mm-hmm.
They went ahead, instead of investigating my criminal complaints, they wrote law for themselves to give themselves immunity.
Yeah.
And if you can just do that willy-nilly,
there's no law.
Can't, of course. They can't grant themselves that kind of power.
But
No.
they do.
They do.
I mean, this is what Brent said. What is the point? Well, the point is that people are figuring it out and rising up, and it's just a matter of time.
See, Brent, there is a solution to this. And the solution is that we, the freaking people, need to unite. And we, the freaking people, need to go back, because all of this can be nullified if it can be shown that it was not done in accordance with the constitutional provisions that were laid out and ratified at the very beginning. And I can show you right here, okay? What's on the right-hand side of my screen is the Constitution as it was ratified. What you're seeing here is, it's Article 23. Is that right? XXIII 23.
Mm-hmm.
This is the amendment and revision process to the state constitution, right? They knew there will be times will come when we need to make changes to the Constitution. So how do we do that? Well, Section 1, Amendments, Proposal, and Election. Any amendment or amendments to this Constitution may be proposed in either house of the legislature, and if 2/3 of all members elected to each of the two houses shall vote in favor thereof, the proposed amendment or amendments shall be entered on their respective journals with the yeas and nays taken thereon, and the legislature shall cause the same to be published in at least one newspaper in every county of the state where a newspaper is published for 2 months immediately preceding the next general election, at which time the said amendment or amendments shall be submitted to the electors of the state, the voters,
Yes.
for their approval or rejection. And if majority of the electors voting thereon shall approve the same, such amendment or amendments shall become part of this Constitution. I'm going to read that line again.
So, that'd be Utah. Let's just go for argument's sake, if this is for every state, okay? I'm not saying it is, but for argument's sake. For 2 months, I'm led to believe it's at least got to be in there once a week. I don't think it's supposed to be every day. But it doesn't clarify if it's not supposed to be in there every day. So it just says it's supposed to be in there for 2 months. So I'm under the presumption that it's supposed to be every day, because people get news every day, newspapers and all that. At once upon a time, by the way. Has anybody in any other state, when they passed a law, put it in a newspaper for 2 months? Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's supposed to be for every state. Or anybody in Utah itself, have they actually read it in their newspaper, these things for 2 months?
Such amendment or amendments shall become part of this Constitution. If 2 or more amendments are proposed, they shall be so submitted as to enable the electors to vote on each of them separately. Okay. When you amend something, what does that typically mean? When
Change.
you amend something, or it means to add to, right?
Right.
Or to subtract, or to substitute. But what that means is it's completely separate. You're not changing the original documentation. Because again, the founders of our state knew this, which is why they put right here, Section 2, revision of the Constitution. So hey, if we need to revise, if we need to make serious changes to what's already written here, a constitutional convention would need to be called. Doesn't that just make sense?
Right.
But what has happened? What has happened? Let me read to you the amendments proposal election of our current state's constitution. I'm not going to read the first part because that's pretty much the same. I'm going to start right here. The legislature shall cause the same to be published in at least one newspaper in every county of the state where a newspaper is published for 2 months immediately preceding. We read that. At which time the said amendment or amendments shall be submitted to the electors of the state for their approval or rejection. If a majority of the electors voting thereon shall approve the same, such amendment or amendment shall become part of this Constitution. All right, that's the same. This paragraph right here is where I want you to pay attention to. The revision or amendment of an entire article or the addition of a new article to this Constitution may be proposed as a single amendment and may be submitted to the electors as a single question or proposition. Such amendment may relate to one subject or any number of subjects and may modify or repeal provisions contained in other articles of the Constitution. If such provisions are germane to the subject matter of the article being revised, amended, or being proposed as a new article, well then what the crap do we have a revision of the Constitution provision for? Did you guys catch that?
Oh yeah.
This is blowing my mind.
The revision. That is not what the amendment process is for. You are not to revise anything in this original Constitution without a constitutional convention.
Whoa.
Do you guys see where this blew my mind?
Yeah, my mind's being blown currently.
We have all been dumbed down to think that the federal government is enemy number one. Look in your own backyard, people.
Yeah.
Look at what your local government is doing to you. It's right here. And not only that, so basically what I can do is I can come in here and I can go, any particular change that was proposed was done unlawfully. So I did some more research and I found this site here. I'm going to go ahead and just minimize this and make this one large, just so we can see it. That section was added in 1969. So in 1969, this was the proposed change. This proposed change never should have made it past the House floor. Period. Because the revision or amendment of an entire article or the addition of a new article, that's okay. That's what an amendment is for. It's to add a new article. An amendment is not to revise an entire article.
Whoa.
So I blame the voters of 1969 for not catching that. But I also blame Congress in 1969 for passing this garbage. But this is not the only thing, you guys. Here's every single constitutional amendment here in the state. This is the original Utah Constitution, drafted March through May of 1895, ratified by voters November 5th, 1895. The first proposed amendments were proposed in 1899. They were all rejected. 1901. This was the first one that was changed. All right, let's see what this is. All right, nothing serious. In cities of the first and second class, the public school system shall be controlled by the Board of Education. Okay? It doesn't matter that it's not serious. It needed to be an amendment number 1 to the Utah Constitution, just like the federal Constitution is. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment. That's how these all needed to be listed.
I actually think that is a serious amendment.
It actually is.
That screwed up the education and the brainwashing of our students since then, our culture.
Yeah. Okay. So this is all everything that's here, and I've been going through and trying to find the one, and I heard it was sometime right around here where they took out the Secretary of State, and I'm not seeing it here.
Consent of the state.
Yeah, that one. This is a big one. Offenses required to be prosecuted by indictment shall be prosecuted by information after examination and commitment by a magistrate, unless the examination be waived by the accused with the consent of the state or by indictment. Okay? Article 1, that's the Declaration of Rights. Mm-hmm. So in 1947, they went ahead and said, hey, we don't need to get an indictment to prosecute people. We're just going to prosecute people by information. That violates all rights of due process.
Yeah, and it's saying that the grand jury shall be prescribed by the legislature, which is supposed to be prescribed by the people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's 1949, where it talks about the executive department shall consist, but we still have Secretary of State here. So a few things here. So this is 1949, so I'm getting closer. Let's look at this one. Nope. By the way, this guy here, this Adam Brown, he's a BYU political science. I couldn't find this information on my state's website. I went to the archive.
Everything's so hard to find when you're looking at stuff like this.
I went to archive.gov, .utah.gov, couldn't find it. So State Tax Commission. Sorry, I'm looking for. And I apologize if we're going through this. Oh, here's a big one. This changed the property tax. 1961. Nope.
It took that long to corrupt an entire body.
So while you're looking for this, let me just
go ahead.
put this in modern day right now, because there are several of us in this group who have LLCs. And we're all receiving this information about the Corporate Transparency Act from all directions. Like, I got a hard stop notice on my private mailbox delivery system that said, hey, just so you know, there's a law that says by January 1st of 2025, if you haven't given all your private information to the government for checking for, fins and stuff, this is the Corporate Transparency Act, right? So I looked it up. It hasn't even been passed by the Senate. It's been passed by the Congress, not the Congress, the House, which I have no idea how that happened. But now it hasn't been read 3 times. Like, this is all how a bill is supposed to be passed. And it definitely doesn't have an enacting clause, and it hasn't been passed as law. So how are they, and they're not supposed to meet between now and when this is supposed to be enacted. And for the people who have LLCs prior to January 2024, this would be one of those ex post facto law things where the people from before are going to somehow be prosecuted with this daily fine. This is what everyone's got their red flags up, going crazy. This isn't right. This isn't right. But no one knows why it's not right. Like, this explains it. Like, how this whole mess just kind of evolved little by little by little to where people think that just because it's posted somewhere that it's actually law.
Right. Just because they tell you. Well, it's worked so far.
Yeah, because people don't know the prescribed form of law.
No, they don't. All right. Article 7.
Excuse me, y'all. This video is already too long. And You don't think the federal government's doing the exact same process as the states is? Our Congress are passing laws that's not going through the right way of doing things? You're sadly mistaken. Again, there's been a few people out there saying 95% of the laws are unconstitutional. Now you know why. This is the way the people lose. Bye, y'all.